Video game inspections. So this is something I talk about quite a lot. I realized that we needed to make a series. I bought a game from eBay and I went through the process of inspecting the pictures as best I could and then inspected it when it showed up in person as well. The other day we were talking about someone wanted to get a game, I'm blanking on the Thousand Arms. We were talking about Thousand Arms the other day. And someone said that they wanted to get a good copy of Thousand Arms, and we went through probably a dozen listings of Thousand Arms online for PlayStation 1, and just going through, this one's water damaged, and here's why, and this one's this, and here's why. And I realized, man, I should just make a video series showing people how to inspect games from an eBay listing standpoint and how to inspect games when they either get it in their hands and they're at a store and they're checking it out, or if they get it shipped to them, what to look for. So I got a copy of Final Fantasy Tactics. I have a greatest hits version of Tactics. I said, man, I do really want the retail release, that first retail release. I found this one listed. It was listed for a retail release price. It was listed, the way it should be. It was close from the pictures that I saw online. I said, yeah, this is one of those situations where yep, this is priced exactly like how it should be. And I wanted to get it before the remaster prices went crazy and everything. It showed up. It was very well packaged. It was completely wrapped in bubble wrap inside of a box, which I appreciate. There was a PlayStation 1 FMV game that I got, and I'll post the pictures up here. There's a PlayStation 1 FMV game that I got that was shipped to me in a plastic bag mailer wrapped in a Walmart bag. It was a copy of Fox Hunt on the PlayStation 1. That game's not cheap. So the packaging will always tell you something very important about what to expect for this game. And one of the things that I do, and it's gross, and you probably shouldn't do it like this, but one of the things that I do is when I get a game in, I will smell both the game and I'll smell the packaging. So I'll take it up to my nose, give it a big old sniff, and that'll give me a good idea of what I am in for. Realistically, you should waft it, where you pull it towards your face, that sort of thing. But I'm gross like that. Breathing directly in, and you'll get a very quick tell of what is to be expected from how that bubble wrap smells, how the packaging smells, just how it's packaged in general. Is it wrapped in bubble wrap and it's put inside of a box and it looks like someone cares? Cool, awesome, you're good to go. Was it wrapped in a Walmart bag? I also still don't understand the point of wrapping it in a Walmart bag. It's not waterproof, and realistically, unless you wrapped up the bag very well, it wouldn't prevent any water. It would actually collect, but fine, whatever. At any rate, got this copy of Final Fantasy Tactics, very well packaged. And there's a couple of things that jumped out at me when I started to inspect it that I said, oh, this is actually a lot better than I thought it would be. So first and foremost is this little line of residue up here. And I don't know if you'll be able to see it necessarily, but there is a really distinct line that goes right to about there, stops about there, doesn't go any further. We know that that is the security sticker that was on top. Are there any signs on the back side? We get a little bit of residue right there, a little bit of residue right there, and we know that at one point that entire sticker was on the top. Standard for a whole bunch of different games, so of course this is going to have it as well. Can't really see too much else on here. The case is in fantastic shape, and this is something that's important to take into consideration too, is that what can you replace and what can't you replace? So on a PlayStation 1 game in particular, I can replace the jewel case. So if the jewel case comes in and there's smudges, cracks, whatever else, but the insides are okay, then I know that I'm in pretty good shape because I can replace all of this other stuff. It's not a big deal. The other thing is the manual. So we have those two retention tabs, and I know I've talked about it a whole bunch. We have these two retention tabs, and you can see that it's doing a pretty good job of holding in that manual because it's just applying a little bit of counter pressure to it, so we know the manual is going to stick there no problem. So we take out that manual. The jewel case looks good. Couple little smudges here, but honestly, that's probably from the residue. Let's check out the manual. First thing you want to check at, top and bottom edges. Your top and bottom edges are where you're going to see the most water, and it's where you're going to see your water damage. This one doesn't have any water damage. I will show you what that looks like though. Top looks good. Nice crisp edge on the bottom here. We see there's not a lot of breaking of the spine, which means that it wasn't all flattened out or it didn't get banged up on the sides, that kind of thing. But the biggest and easiest tell on a PlayStation 1 game is to flip to the center page. And I've talked about this a little bit in the mold videos. Same thing applies here. Flip to the center page and inspect those staples. Are those staples in good condition? So you can see here they're a nice bright silver. You're not seeing any dark brown on any of these. You're not seeing any dark brown or red or orange around any of these. So we know that this is in good shape. Okay, we know there's no water damage because the ends are all nice and clean. Now you could theoretically take a big old sniff of it. This one smells just fine, so we know that that's no issue there either. So then we move on to the disc itself, and the disc itself looks absolutely pristine. Nice, clean disc right there. Nothing to worry about on any of those sides either. So overall, just from looking at every single bit of this game is in fantastic shape. Okay, we don't see any discoloration or anything weird on here. Now, a trick is if you're looking at a cover art, we can see that there's a little bit of a brownish color in that corner. Look up the cover art. Look up images of the cover art and see if that should be there. We can tell on here that that's part of a map. And so we know, well, yeah, that's a part of the map. That should be a little brown. The rest is a nice, good, clean, consistent color. You won't see too many games that have like a weird gradient or something on the side. So we know that this is in good shape. Checking the edges, we see that the edges are all nice and clean. You can still see very strong perforations on both of the sides. That's what you want to see, nice sharp corners. Those nice sharp corners and nice crisp edges tell me that it has not seen any water damage. Cool, so this is a very good condition, hasn't had any water damage, hasn't had any issues or anything. This is what you want to see. Let's see something you don't want to see. So now at first glance, this doesn't look that bad, right? Now, I bought this knowing what was wrong with it, but I could see how if you posted this online and you said, well, here's Dragon Warrior, PlayStation 1, here's Dragon Warrior on the back. You see that? You might not be able to see that yet, but if this is sitting here and you see it in the store and you go, oh, yeah, Dragon Warrior, and then they show the side edge and you go, wait a minute. So the issues with Dragon Warrior, let's start from the outside and work our way in. On the front, okay, not really too many issues on the front that are really obvious. The cover art looks real nice and clean, okay. You probably can't see it. There's a little bit of bubbling right on this edge. See if we can get it nice and close. You see that? A little bit of bubbling on there. Would that show up in a picture on eBay? Probably not. Honestly, probably not. So then we look at the side. So this, that's a problem because that's also inside of the cover art. You see that? Okay. So we know we need to start doing some looking because that is, the paper has worn off from the actual cover art. Okay, worst case scenario, we just have to replace this front cover art. You know what I mean? Not the worst, not the end of the world. So then we flip to the back. You see it? There's a couple things to see. First and foremost, is that a cloud? Is that, should that be like that? That looks weird. So let me draw out a couple of spots that might not necessarily stand out to you right away and see if you can start to see it now. So there's this little spot. There's all of this dotting. There's another little cloud down here. Let's see what else we can see. More of this down here. Goes all the way up and then loops all the way up and around. Actually, let's just draw out the rest of it. So there's this line right here that's really distinct. Let me show you what we're talking about, if it's not jumping out to you just yet. So on this bottom part right here, there is discoloration. There's a very, see that line right there? That's your discoloration, okay? Now this, combined with a little bit of the wrinkling that you'll see, let me see if it'll focus again. The little bit of the wrinkling you'll see, that is water damage, okay? This is another example. You might not necessarily be able to see it, but this is another example of water damage where you would have to compare it to the original art. So that right there, that shouldn't be there, okay? And then this one, let's see if I can get the light to work with me. You see all that spotting? Every single bit of that is where the paper has gotten wet and has adhered itself to the plastic. So we'll take it out and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about, okay? Also, just, I don't know if you guys saw, this is dry erase. And this is good to mark on cases and stuff if you want to talk about things, and then these gloves actually make it really easy to wipe it off. So again, there's some issues on here, okay? So let's dig into it, knowing that there is some water damage on this side. You see we have more of that sort of bubbling that's happening right there. You can see it real well right there. And then on this side, yeah. So let's crack her open. How's the disc look? Disc looks pretty good. Cover art, you can see some discoloration. Okay, you can see how this is a lot more brown than the rest of it is. That's your discoloration. Let's see how the manual's doing. We'll pull out the manual again. Remember, you waft it towards your face and it'll tell you what's going on. Let's check the center. What I see here, nice and clean. Is the manual okay? The manual has a little bit of a mildew-ish smell, but honestly, the manual is in pretty good condition. This happens a lot of times, especially with a loose manual on a double case. There's a little spot on here. Not too worried about that though, but this manual is actually in pretty good condition. And this happens where, you know, the discs will be in perfectly fine condition, the manual will be in perfectly fine condition, but it's just that darn cover art that'll get a little bit of moisture into it. This disc also looks fine. If it wasn't fine, if we knew that there was issues on here, you would see brown spotting. You would see a little bit more bubbling on this one, but for the most part, you can get these discs fairly damp and it's not a big deal. But when we look at the back here, we can see some business. So we're gonna take the back off. Remember our little trick here? So we put our little plastic spudger underneath, lift up, good to go. So this you can already tell has got some issues on it, okay? And I'll show you just this side because I wanna make sure you're understanding. Yeah, so already just based on the paper alone, and you see this? So you see how this is stuck? Yeah, that's that water damage. So we could pull this off. You see a little bit of the residue there, but that is pretty stuck on there, okay? Can you fix this? Yeah, absolutely. So I could heat up this paper. The problem is, you see how that's starting to go too? It's gonna rip, okay? Heating up the paper would mean that you could release it as much as possible, but you're not gonna get back that water damage. I don't even think I can get in on this side very easily. Nope, because that's where the majority of the water damage is. So if your cover art is stuck like this, okay, and you get that kind of marking, and you still see that bubbling that we talked about earlier, let me get it into the light. See that bubbling? That is just melted to the cover art, okay? Not the end of the world. Definitely not the end of the world. Just something that you should be aware of to know what to look for. So, but I also bought this game knowing that it had these issues and knowing that I was getting a water damaged PlayStation 1 game. And I knew it because, one, no one else was going to buy it, but also because the store that I bought it from, I was very worried they weren't necessarily going to tell people that it was water damaged. Charity case! I guess that's what it is, or me being a sucker. One of the two. So this, let's say $30? Something like that. Whatever the average price is for it. The discs still work. Is it going to get any worse? Not necessarily. Potentially, but not necessarily. You could do some mold mitigation on this one as well. You could take your UV light and make sure all the mold is dead and everything, sure. This is one of those that is tough. I would want to assess the water damage that's on here, but I don't see any signs of mold. So I'm not seeing, I'm not seeing any mold growth or anything. I'm just seeing some water damage. Now, you can have water damage without getting mold from it. It's not like it's an automatic, like, oh, this got water damage, that means it's gonna mold. Not at all, not at all, not at all, not at all. You can also just get water damage and it just wrecks your stuff. Okay, so then it wrecks your stuff and now you're sitting here with a water damaged but now dry game that's messed up. That's okay. That's okay too. It still plays the same. It stinks. That ain't smell that bad, but so no, this is a big case of know what you're buying. This is something where if you were to get it for a bargain and you wanted it for the discs itself, okay, yeah, I know what I'm getting and I know what I'm buying into. It's not a big deal if it has a little bit of character to it. Manual's in good shape, discs are in good shape. Would you split this up and then sell this as just the manual and the game is by itself and discard the cover art? I don't know. These are the weird ones, and these are the weird ones where you can't do too much to bring it back to good condition because this is the condition that it is in. This is as far as it goes. Case is a little beat up. This case is a little beat up. I mean, everything else is fairly tight, stays fairly tight. You can't swap the case because then you would have to damage the cover art to get it. It's Schrodinger's copy of Dragon Warrior 7, I guess. So I have it because why not? It makes sense. I didn't have a good copy of this. I didn't have any copy of this. So I said, yep, give me this one. And so here we are. Actually, I had the import. I have this version. Oh no, and I have the DS version. Okay, so I have a bunch of copies of this, so there was no reason to buy this. At any rate, let me show you something else. Now this one is tough. I have seen in the past 2 years a lot of water damaged copies of Silent Hill. Do you see the water damage? I'll bring some light in. Do you see the water damage? No? Really? Nothing yet? How about on the back? See the water damage? Case has a little bit of abrasion on it. Looked like there was something on there someone tried to clean. Could use a case swap. Not the end of the world. Could definitely use a case swap. Huh. Okay. A little bit of dirt or something in there. Interesting. Edges look good. Edges look good. Front looks good. Or does it? Or does it? Back comes the dry erase marker. And I will... Do you see this little spot on here? To the left of that line? Do you see that little coloration? Might not show up on a camera. Do you see it? It's hard to see. It's legitimately hard to see. Even at a distance, normally, it's hard to see. Let's pop it open. Looks good. Looks worn. I mean, this whole game looks worn. It looks, the disc is in fantastic shape. The back, the art's real nice and crisp. First little sign of issues. Good staple. So, now we're looking at the edge of the paper. See that? So now we got a little bit of an issue. So let's start doing some digging. So we'll take our cover art out, or manual, whatever it is. And you can just barely see that discoloration. Camera probably doesn't even do it justice. And you can also see that it's a little wavy. How's it smell? just old, just a little old, but it feels stiff. It feels crinkly almost. Okay, so like we said, one day at a time. Let's check that center. Yep. Okay. So, for reference, in case you're curious, good staples, not good staples. See how that works? So, also it's interesting with this one, you still get a little squeakiness, but it's not the same sharp squeaky that you get from a newer manual. It's just interesting. So, we got water damage. We got water damage in the middle, okay? That's why you got the mold, or the mold, that's why you got the rust going. No real signs of mold though, but there has definitely been some water damage. Probably can't see it too well on this one. See that wrinkling right there? Same thing. Same thing. And then we see some pretty good signs of water damage right there. See that discoloration right there? Yeah, so that's water damage. Now, this is the interesting part, is that you probably wouldn't really catch it normally. Inside of the manual smells, you know, smells a little bit, but what are you gonna do? Would you have noticed it? I don't know. If someone were to have like a bulk listing like this, would you necessarily have noticed that this one had water damage? Maybe. Would people say that it has water damage? Hopefully. I would hope that people say that they have water damage, but fun fact, all three of these, let's see if I can show them off. Bam! All three of these that were shown right here, no mention of any issues. So no mention of any water issues, no mention of any issues on any of these. So isn't that kind of interesting? 3 different games. One's perfectly fine, so one wouldn't have water damage as a comment to it, and the other ones probably should. This one I knew right away because I was able to inspect it. This one was purchased by a friend, and they purchased it online. No mention of water damage, and it was priced as a complete in-box, good condition Silent Hill would be priced. So this is a tough situation. But so this is why I want to make series for people to really be able to look at their games and get a good understanding of what to inspect. So just to recap pretty quickly, check your edges. Your edges are always going to tell you if you've had any water damage. Check your art as well to make sure that you understand, is there any sort of a bubbling, any sort of texturing or anything like that that I need to know of. Check the sides. Ask for a picture of the manual, honestly. But remember that this one, the staples are perfectly fine. So if you ask for a picture of the manual, you might get a picture of a manual that's perfectly fine, and they'll say, well, it's perfectly fine, and you say, okay, it's never been water damaged. Well, no, it has. So just keep this in mind as you're looking at PlayStation 1 games in particular. We're gonna make this into a whole series where I'll just go through the gambit of every single game console you could look at, and just some things on what to do and what to check for and everything. eBay is tough. It's tough on eBay, and it's tough out there because you'll find a game that might be priced well, but it's damaged. Okay, well, do you want to buy it even though it's priced well, but it's damaged? Well, I don't know. And then you might find a game that you want to take a gamble on and see what happens. That's what he did here. And so I'm going to take a gamble on it and see what happens, and he ended up with a rusted game. You can actually see it just barely from the front there too, but would a picture on eBay have showed it? No. Can you trust the seller when the seller says no water damage? I mean, you could still ask. You could still ask. It's not going to hurt. Some sellers will get annoyed if you ask for more pictures. To each their own in that case. I think if you're asking for a picture or two and you're being realistic about what you're asking for, that's not a big deal. If you're saying, hey, can I get a picture of the center of the manual? And is there any water damage? And if they throw a fit because you're asking those two questions, oh, there's your answer. So I will always happily buy and spend market or above to get a game that I know is in good shape, rather than, have someone spend market and get a game that is in rough shape. And we checked the listing on this one. They didn't say anything about water damage. They probably didn't know. And they probably didn't know that that was an issue. So again, just, be smart about what you're looking at. If anything looks weird, if it looks weird, honestly, pass it up. Otherwise, if it does look weird and you have any questions or anything, go ahead and ask me. We talk about this all the time on a whole bunch of the different cleaning channels that are out there. And pretty soon there's going to be a couple of different websites and things that you guys will be able to reference to. Just resources of signs and things like that. So any game that comes in like this, we'll take pictures of and document so that people can know what they're looking at, that sort of thing. So if you're unsure about something, never hesitate to ask me or ask someone else that might know what they're looking at, or just ask a friend, hey, does that look weird? And see what they say, because they might see something that you don't, So drop in the comments below. I'm always curious to hear what are some of the weirdest packaging things that people have gotten. I think the Walmart bag wrapped in a Walmart bag is one of the weirdest for me. But then also drop in any hints that you guys have, if you have learned any tricks or anything from buying on eBay of how to inspect listings. Let me know those things too. I always like to hear people's tricks and methods, and if there's something that I didn't think of or something that I forgot, definitely drop that into. Video after this, we're going to do, like I said, this is a whole series, but the video after this, we're going to do long boxes. So there are, I don't know, there's probably about 5 or 6 PlayStation 1 long boxes over there. I'll show you how to look at those, damage and issues that you can and can't fix easily, that sort of thing, what to look at. And we'll keep going with this, because I think people aren't pricing games based on condition well enough nowadays. And so I think it is very much up to the buyer to be able to know what to look for. So as always, I will be more than happy to help you guys if you have any questions about anything. Drop me a line on the Hit Save server, Game Eye server, Video Game Preservation Collective, any of those servers. Drop me a message there. Comment on the YouTubes, anywhere else, and I'll get to them. There's always just a ton, and I like responding to each one, but I have to give a good response to each one too, so it might take a little time. Yeah, if you have any questions or anything, or if there's any other inspection things that you want to see, let me know. A disc rot will be a whole separate thing. So if you are inspecting discs and you want to know if it has disc rot or something, that's a whole separate thing. This is going to be inspecting the games themselves for eBay. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for putting up with all this. If there are any video series that you do want to see, let me know. Otherwise, I appreciate each and every one of you. I have, well, this one I don't have to clean, so that's nice. I could just play this one. The other ones we might have to do a little bit of fixing to. Until next time, thanks everyone. I'm going to keep cleaning.